For the past 6 years, my office has been inside of various locker rooms alongside some of the best athletes in our generation. Not only have I had the opportunity to lace them up alongside Heisman Trophy winners, Olympians, Navy SEALs, and Super Bowl champions on a daily basis, I've also got to see their habits, their preparation, and their approach to life up close. And from the outside, these people look like genetic anomalies, right? Superheroes in a sense. They're big, they're fast, they're athletic. But when you spend enough time around greatness, you realize something. The gap between good and great is almost never something that's tangible. You see, we had this saying when I was at the University of Richmond, controlled chaos. The ability to thrive in an environment where uncertainty is the architect. The best athletes aren't just training their bodies to run faster and jump higher. They're training their minds to process chaos slower. And I think as an athletic and fitness industry, we do a really good job of measuring things like speed and VO2 and other physical metrics, but we fail to measure the one thing that decides if the athlete or the person breaks or breaks through in a given circumstance: their neural load. The problem is that we're missing the most critical metric. We track VO2, we track hydration levels, we track sleep quality to the minute. But for the system that determines their emotions, their decision-making, their reaction time, we rely mostly on subjectivity. So I believe the next wave of human performance is not going to be in more of these physical metrics. We've done that, we've mastered that. It's going to be in the data of their mind. Now I admit, the mind's a very, very difficult thing to quantify. Nor do I think we really should quantify it in the traditional ways that we view data. It's not as binary as seeing your HRV levels and relating it back to your sleep quality. It's a bit more involved than that. The way that I see it, it's a combination of 3 layers. The first layer is mental health, right? The foundation, am I okay? The second layer is mental wellness. How is my day-to-day? The third layer is mental performance. Am I creating the best version of myself? And you can't have mental wellness without mental health. You can't have mental wellness without mental performance. All of these work so closely together and intersect at so many different points. The problem is that we treat these like separate silos. We wait for the health to break before we address wellness, or we expect performance without the foundation of health. Elite athletes, they don't have that luxury, and realistically, neither should any of us. So what I want to do today is I want to show you guys how the athletes that I've been around treat these 3 levels of mental health, mental wellness, mental performance, to not just be a safety net, but to be a weapon, and to stop simply surviving the chaos and start to control it. So the first layer, like I said, is mental health. And I believe we have a binary trap when viewing mental health in society where you're either sick or you're healthy, right? They don't give us a middle ground. We know it's not really how the human body works. Muscles, ACLs, they don't tear out of nowhere. They tear because of cumulative load, acute trauma, instability issues. There's a variety of reasons as to why muscles can tear. The mind works in the exact same way. When you ignore the stressors, the anxiety, the fatigue, you're eroding away your structural integrity. And biologically, we know exactly what happens when you do this. Your amygdala, which is this almond-shaped alarm system in your brain, it starts ringing, okay? And its job is very, very simple. It's fight, flight, or freeze. And when it rings, the crucial part here is it drowns out your prefrontal cortex. Now, think of your prefrontal cortex to be like the command center to your body. It hosts strategy, logic, emotional regulation. So the louder that your amygdala is alarming, the more your prefrontal cortex is getting drowned out, the more you're losing access to your own intelligence. It's kind of like a hijack of your brain in this sense. So how do you stop that hijack in your brain? Well, you stop treating mental health as a reaction, and you start to treat it proactively. Right? It's like a prehab, in a sense. The best athletes that I've been with, they do this daily neural audit. It takes 30 seconds. They ask themselves, hey, what is my signal to noise ratio right now? Am I tired? Am I fatigued? What am I feeling? By simply naming the emotion, it forces the amygdala to quiet down and it brings your prefrontal cortex back online. That right there is a takeaway in itself. Right? You don't need a crisis check-in. You need to check in with yourself so you don't have a crisis. UCLA Neuroimaging did a study on this recently. This process called affect labeling, where you name that emotion, right? I'm happy, I'm tired, I'm fatigued. It reduces the amygdala response by over 50%, meaning in that moment, you become 50% more emotionally stable. So for layer 1 mental health, right, neural audit, effect labeling, name the emotion throughout the day. Layer 2 is mental wellness. And I believe this is where a lot of high performers will kind of roll their eyes at me, because wellness is viewed as a luxury in society. It's the trip we take once a year, it's a glass of wine we have on a Friday night. We burn ourselves out, and the reward we give ourselves is this concept of wellness. The solution that we talk about in sports is oscillation. Your brain operates in ultradian rhythms, meaning roughly every 90 minutes or so, you shift from this high focus to physiological fatigue. Now, you can push through that physiological fatigue. We do it all the time when you're working on stuff. Caffeine, grit, a variety of reasons you can push through this. You create a neural debt for yourself, meaning you're running mostly on adrenaline and cortisol at this time. And when you have a neural debt, you increase burnout risk. You increase injury risk if you're doing something active. There are many more negative paths that this goes down. The best athletes, they don't grind for 10 hours straight. They can't. They oscillate, like I said. They pulse, they sprint, they recover, they sprint, they recover. They view recovery purely as the prerequisite to the work that they're going to put in. I had the opportunity to compete in the Olympic trials about 2 months ago or so, and people actually are surprised by this. We really only put in about an hour to an hour and a half of work in per day leading up to trials. The reason we did this is it gave us allocated time slots to focus on our physical and our mental recovery. So the point that I'm trying to make is people that are vying for gold medals do this on the national stage. Why? Well, because it's extracting our peak performance at the right time. So for your layer 2 actionable takeaway, don't wait for the weekend to recover. If you want to see the long-term wellness benefits, you need to microdose your recovery throughout the day. This could be a 60-second breathing exercise, a 90-second meditation. It's really as simple as that. Clinical studies have found that controlled diaphragmatic breathing, when you're focusing on your breath in and out, it stops the production of your primary stress hormone by over 20%. I mean, if you want to continue seeing the long-term wellness benefits, you want to continue enjoying what you're doing, not be at an increased risk for burnout or injury, you need to microdose your recovery throughout the day. Okay, layer 2, mental wellness, microdose your recovery. And layer 3 is mental performance, where all of this comes together. And I think we view performance in society, especially in sports, as this clutch gene or a talent. What we really know it to be is myelination. It's the electrical current signal transmission in your brain. It's literally how fast you can process stuff. And the good news, this is a trained skill. Right? That concept of controlled chaos, that's not a personality trait. That's reinforcement learning thousands and thousands of times over and over again. A fantastic example of this is, we used to have these pregame scouting report quizzes when I was playing in college, where our coach would call one of us up at a time. And we had to answer on 2 things. One was information on the scouting report itself. The second was hypothetical situations that could arise during the game. And we had 2 rules when doing this. You had to answer, and you had to answer quickly. Without even knowing what we were doing, is we were building up our myelination, we were building up the performative side of our brain, because it was forcing us to make confident decisions and act on them quickly. Were we always correct with our answers? No, we weren't always correct with our answers, and we strove for accuracy, but there were separate repercussions if we were consistently wrong. What we did was we were forced to act quickly and make that decision at 100% speed. That right there is what makes performative and clutch athletes, the ability to make confident decisions and act on them. So for your layer 3 and final actionable takeaway, I call this a 2-minute drill. It's a bit different. Next time before a high-stakes moment, this could be a sales call. If you're an athlete, it could be before a game, it could be before a presentation. Close your eyes and visualize this for 2 minutes. Normally in this situation, people visualize success, right? They visualize themselves crushing the call, making the sale, hitting the game-winning shot, whatever your definition of success is. But when you want to build up the performative side of your brain, I want you to visualize the glitch happening. This could be the tech failing, right? The client asking you the question you're not prepared for, the chaos ensuing in front of you, because it will inevitably ensue in front of you. But then more importantly, visualize yourself handling that. Confidently pivoting, breathing, making the correct decision despite the chaos ensuing in front of you. This is laying down the neural track. So when you inevitably, like I'm saying, see the chaos, your brain won't panic. It'll go, okay, I've been here before, I know what to do in this situation. Cal Berkeley did a study on this, and they found that these controlled studies, these controlled simulations, resulted in a 30% increase over those who just visualize success. So if you want to continue building the performative side of your brain, you want to continue building up your myelination, don't just manifest and visualize success. Visualize the glitch happening, visualize the chaos happening, but more importantly, visualize yourself handling that glitch. So layer 3, the final layer of mental performance, the 2-minute drill. Now, like I said earlier, mental health, mental wellness, mental performance, they're all so closely related to each other, and they intersect at so many different points. And we've spent the last 10, 15, 20 years raising awareness around mental health. We've seen the dedicated mental health awareness weeks, we've seen the campaigns, we've heard the courageous athlete testimonials about their battles with mental health. And yet in the last 2 years, we've seen more instances than in the last 10 years combined. Why is that? It's because awareness has simply stopped at awareness. And we haven't put down actual infrastructures and strategies in place on what to do when you're not okay. We're told it's okay to not be okay, but we're not told what to actually do when we're not okay. We're not told how to build up our mental health to help us avoid a point when we're feeling like that. You see, awareness is simply just the starting line. The chaos is not going to disappear. The uncertainty is not going to vanish. The world's going to continue and continue to get faster. So we have a choice. We can either continue to treat our mental health as a crisis management system, just waiting for the system to break down before we properly pay attention to it, or we can train it. Right? We can use the neural audit to protect our foundation. We can use microdosing recovery to protect our energy, and we can use the 2-minute drill to inoculate ourselves against the chaos. You don't need to be a Heisman Trophy winner, an Olympian, a Navy SEAL to do this. You just need to simply possess the same anatomy as they do. And you do. If we can treat our mind with the same reverence, the same data, the same discipline that an Olympian treats their body, I promise we won't just be building healthier humans, we're going to be building more capable ones. So let's simply stop just raising awareness around mental health, and let's start raising the capacity for each other. Thank you, guys.